Hello and welcome to SJP Advisor Stories. In this series, we interview SJP partners and advisors to share their real-life experiences. I'm your host, G for Tit, and if you have any questions that you would like to ask an SJP partner or advisor, please feel free to comment below or reach out to me on LinkedIn. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe. So, a very warm welcome to SJP Advisor Stories to Natasha Percy-Baxter.
Hello.
It's lovely to have you, Natasha. Thank you for agreeing to spend some time with us.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, well, we're really excited to understand a bit about your personal journey. But we're going to open the show with a question that we ask to everybody, which is, what does financial advice mean to you?
I'd say for me, it's helping people to better understand and maximize their money, to help them achieve their goals and to be able to enjoy spending the time they have the way they want to.
I love that summary. Brilliant. So before we get into the detail of what you're doing now and how you help clients, which we will get to, what I would really like to do is find out a bit more about you in terms of what you were doing before you came to our academy and things like that. So shall we start there? What were you doing before you joined the SJP Academy?
So if I go back to potentially just quickly from uni to like just before I started the academy. So I did English literature actually at university at UEA, so University of East Anglia in Norwich. And then wasn't quite sure what to do next. So I ended up doing a master's in publishing at City University London, which led to me working in children's publishing for 6 years. So the last job I had was as a senior editor at a children's publisher in Chelsea. And it was lovely and I really enjoyed it. And I got to work on some amazing books. But then as you do, I thought I'd take my career in a completely different direction. And I moved across to corporate finance. Obviously, everyone should do that. And did that for a few years, really enjoyed it. But then COVID struck and I thought I'd do a bit of soul searching. And we'll go into a bit more about that kind of soul searching and how that led me to it. But basically off the back of that, realized I wanted to be a financial advisor, and that led me to SJP's Academy.
Wow. So yeah, I think we need to go step by step along that journey and that story, but fascinating background. So from publishing to corporate finance, COVID struck and you knew you wanted to do a bit of soul searching. So let's start there. What was it that made you realize that corporate finance wasn't the job for you?
I think part of it is I'm someone who's very driven, very ambitious, and I'm naturally a goal-based person anyway, even though I do that for a living now. And I was kind of sitting down and I was thinking, what's my 5-year plan? And I was talking it through with my boss throughout the year. I initiated reviews actually at that job. They weren't doing it previous to me joining the company. And I was like, no, we need to do reviews. We need to naturally just do these kind of things. And it was one of those where I thought the job could go in a certain position, but with COVID, quite a lot of change happened within the company. And I'm not very good at kind of sitting back and twiddling my thumbs. I'm very like, right, what's the next task? I've managed to, achieve all these things. What can we do with it now? Where can we take it? I really like the fact that you're kind of pushing things forward and pushing the envelope and things. And then when everything got quiet with COVID, I was just like, okay, I feel like I need a new challenge. Plus the fact that I liked the finance side of what I was doing, but you're working with corporations, which are great. And I still do work with some companies now, but I prefer the kind of face-to-face, the like one-to-one interaction. And so I thought I'd kind of do a bit more soul searching to see if there was a way of potentially shifting what I was doing into it being more direct, I guess, with those interactions. Yeah.
Wow. But didn't know exactly what that was at that point.
Nope, no idea.
And I love the bravery. So you made that decision, and I know that you quit your job before you knew what you wanted to do next. And I think for anybody watching, that might feel like a very brave step. Not just because you didn't know what you were doing, but for me, it's that financial step. So how did you prepare yourself for that element?
So I wouldn't say it wasn't like a spur of the minute decision. It's something I've been thinking about for quite a while. And I think about 9 months before I handed in my notice, I thought I might at some point need to have a backup fund. I know in the industry we call it an emergency fund. With my clients, I call it a thank goodness fund. It's that kind of money that's there. That's like, oh, thank goodness, I can kind of, if you need to take care of someone or go on a random holiday or something, there's money there that helps you out. And for me, it was helping me out with transition from what I was doing to exploring it. And I did talk with my boss about it, and he was great. He was very much like, where are you going? And I was like, no, generally, I'm not going anywhere else. I just need to, the way I put it is remove the safety net of having a job. And I'd been thinking for a while, it might be that I do a bit of soul searching and I come back and we discuss that, and he was open to it, thank goodness. But I was like, I know that I need to remove any like outside voices or any kind of other opinions so I can focus on what I really want to be doing. Because I think from quite a young age, it's easy to be like, you turn to your parents, what are their jobs? What do I want to do? Or you have like maybe a career coach, which we did at school, who sits you down, you think, where are you going to uni and what's the eventual job and all this stuff. And I think I'd never fully sat down and thought, what do I want as a job? You get a general sense of what you want to do potentially, but it's rare that people sit down and go, certain times into your career, is this still what I wanted to do when I first entered my career? And I thought, right, COVID's unique, hopefully, fingers crossed. And I thought this is the time to fully take a chance to assess everything. So yes, I had the kind of financial backing I gave myself, I guess, by setting that up. Yeah. And then I was like, right, let's have the time to do that soul searching. Yeah.
Wow. So there we were, COVID, lockdown, not much going on outside. And you took that time for yourself. So where did you start? What were your next steps after removing that safety net for yourself in terms of an employed role? What did you do next?
So what I originally thought I might be doing, again, this taps into the voices and things earlier. So my parents thought I should be an accountant because I loved maths growing up. Maths and English are my two favorite subjects, which again, I feel is a bit rare. And they were like, oh, maths, we know that's an accountant job, so you should be an accountant. And I don't know if I usually say this, but yeah, I have a monthly facial, and Kat, who's my facialist, was like, you're not an accountant, like that's so not you. No offense to any accountants listening, great job, my best friend's an accountant, but she was like, I think you need something that's a bit more interactive, a bit more kind of like you're sitting there having the conversations, you're not there doing the analysis basically. And she recommended this book called What Color Is Your Parachute? And oh my gosh, so glad she did. And I keep telling her this all the time. And basically, it's a book that I think has been around for about 50 years, I'm going to guess, not entirely sure. They bring out a new iteration every year or every other year. And the idea is it has all these worksheets to help you figure out what job suits you. And the thing I really liked about it is it took you from where I kind of at school, it was very much become rounded. So what are you not good at? Make that better. What you're good at, obviously keep working at it, but focus more on becoming that rounded person. Whereas the book shift that focus to be like, well, no, what you're not good at and what you don't enjoy, let's not focus on that. Let's focus on what you enjoy. What are you passionate about? What would get you out of bed? And then can we find a job where you can do that and you can get paid for it? And I was like, oh, I quite like that as a thought. So I was like, well, what do I really enjoy? And it really made me sit down. You have to write like full stories of when have you accomplished things that you were proud of. And then you have to pick stuff out from the stories. And it definitely takes a bit of time. I think it took me 2 weeks without a job just to fully work through it all. Wow. Obviously, you can do it around job if you have one. Again, I would not say to everyone, do the route I did. You don't have to quit a job to explore things. But for me, luckily, I had the time then to do it. And the way it kind of led to where I'm now is my key passions were the top 3. Because again, you do about 10, you pick the top ones. Organization. I love being organized. I have all my notebooks, all my kind of things. I love it.
Your shelves look very organized behind you there, Natasha.
Thank you very much. And the other thing that's really passionate for me is successful women. I love seeing women, not just women, but I love seeing women succeed. I love seeing men succeed too. But I think there's something that I feel inspires me by seeing other people achieve amazing things. And grew up in a very competitive household, but it was very much like, it's all about cheering those people on who do well as well. And I'd rather be in a room of people who are all inspiring each other to how can we be better versions? How can we achieve more? How can we do all these things? So I've always found like nonfiction books are my favorite. So any biographies about successful women, especially Hannah Morrissey. I think I've read the books she's written, everything really inspiring. And then the other thing was financial understanding. I don't think I had a good understanding of finance growing up. I don't think I really did even like a few years ago have a good financial understanding. And I thought it's something that impacts every aspect of our lives, but it's not taught in schools. It's not something we really talk about with friends and family. It almost feels like the last taboo. And I was like, I really like the idea of doing something. Didn't even know if it was going to be this job, but something where you're changing that, you're helping people feel more comfortable. about their finances. And then in the kind of skills section, it was things like communicating, which I wasn't at school, was not a communicator at school, I've really worked on it since, and I love it now. Leading, I'm the oldest of 4 siblings, so I'm used to being in charge. And planning. I love having a plan. I'm horrendous at last minute. If you ask me to do something this evening, I'd say no, I can't do anything last minute. It really, oh no, makes my skin crawl. But a plan, I could plan out every weekend for a year, the whole weeks. Like that for me is like my happy place. Love it. So it was, and again, it didn't jump off the page straight away. I was like, oh, I thought I'd figure it out from doing all these kind of worksheets and everything, putting it all together on one page. But the next kind of page says, okay, we'll try mixing things up and see if anything jumps off the page. And it was the financial from financial understanding, and it was the planning. Those came together, and literally, and it sounds so corny saying it, but it was a proper like eureka moment. It was like, oh my gosh, this makes so much sense. I have no idea what it does. You know, I don't know how to get into it. I know no one in the space, but I love the sound of it.
That's incredible. So the book didn't sort of lead you to you would be good as a financial advisor. It really makes you soul search, and you put the dots together, and you came up with that. And I love that, and just your energy when you're talking about it. I can imagine you doing it and being really excited.
I literally just like, oh my gosh. And again, I'm somebody who's very emotive and very, I can't hide things. If I feel a certain way, it's very obvious. And I was actually like, I think I called out to my husband, like, oh my gosh, I found out what it is. We go for a walk and talk. So I was like, we need to go for a walk and talk about it. I need to figure out what the next step is. I mean, my first step was Google, basically. I feel like that's everyone's first step when you don't know something about something. And that's how I came across the Financial Planner Life podcast with Sam Oakes. And basically the rest for me is history. Listening to that, I heard about St. James Place Academy, about how you can get in that way. And I like the idea of it being fast track. That really appealed to me. I didn't want to spend the next 3 years or whatever retraining, having to like do all the stuff, because I was doing the ACA, so the accountancy exams while I was doing corporate finance. So I had been in slight rhythm of doing exams, but that was potentially 3 to 5 years. So I really like the idea of being able to do it a lot quicker than that, basically.
Great. So that was a second tick in the box. So this is really appealing, so I can learn quickly. So you found the Sam Oakes Financial Planner Life podcast. And what else did you find? Did you look at any other opportunities, or were you just tunnel vision to SJP? How did that feel?
So yes, I was looking at basically anything and everything to get into it. I think that was the thing. I knew this was the role. I just didn't know how to get into it, what would be the best for me to get into it and all this kind of stuff. So I was looking at other academies. I was looking at other routes in, potentially going and working somewhere and building myself up from potentially like a paraplanner. And I found the Quilter Academy. Again, outside of work, I like rugby, and Quilter was sponsoring the Autumn Internationals that year. So that's how I kind of came across them. And I was like, okay, that appeals to me. The other thing I liked was on their website, they had some free learning material for some of the modules. And so I ended up, again, as you do, hadn't applied to anywhere yet. I was just like, I just want to quickly learn what I can to at least get an understanding, because I think there's always a worry. You don't know what in practice it's going to be like. I like the idea of financial understanding for people and the power that can have, but I didn't know if actually day to day I would enjoy it how I imagine it being. But starting to do the like online courses and seeing what it entailed was really kind of confirming that actually, yes, this is exactly what I will be doing. And I remember, calling up St. James. No, what was first? No, I went online and requested the prospectus, I think 2 days after I heard about the academy. So again, this is all happening quite quickly. I didn't want to wait around. And the next day I heard nothing. I don't know how long people wait, but I was like, no, I'm not waiting. So I called up and ended up speaking to this lovely guy, Ken Kong. And I just said, look, I've requested prospectus. It's been a day, haven't heard anything yet. And he was like, well, it's not running right now. It's COVID. We put it on hold. We're trying to figure out how to adjust it with everyone being stuck at home. But we've got a couple of events coming up where we're talking to people. And if you have any questions, let me know. And I remember just laughing. I was like, I've got 2 pages of notes in front of me right now. Like, questions, would you mind? And he was great. He was like, yes, we went through every single one. And then he put me in touch with you. And then I think I had another 2 pages of questions that I ended up asking you. And that for me as a start, I really like the idea that you can ask questions and you can have those conversations. You're not being fobbed off. It's not like, oh, there's this on our website, you can figure it out for yourself, or we'll come back to you and all this kind of stuff. It was very much, again, instant. It was like, how can we help you now? And even though we're not running the academy, we can still talk you through it. We can, you know, share what it will be like as and when you start applying. And yeah, I really like that.
Fantastic. So we moved at your pace.
Yep.
We did our best to move at your pace, even though you were super fast. And so I can very, very vividly remember our meeting, Natasha, and our selection process is ever evolving. So it's probably slightly different to when you went through it now. But quite quickly after you met with me, you would have met one of our selection manager team, and that was Charlie.
Charlie Brown, yep.
Charlie Brown. So talk us through what that looked and felt like for you at the time. So how long ago did you go through the training? It was in COVID, right? It was just after COVID.
So I first heard about SJP's Academy end of October. I think it was literally 26th of October. Again, I don't know exactly, but I got it in my notes somewhere. And I think, yeah, I probably spoke to Charlie a couple of weeks later. And I think, I don't know if I spoke to you or him, but one of you said, I can either wait till there's a date, again, because everything was being reset up, or you can start applying now and we'll let you know as and when there is a date. And I remember asking how long did it take, and it was 5 rounds. So I was like, well, we might as well start now. And then again, I think there's a running theme here. As and when we have a date, let's go for it. And yeah, he was really, again, helpful. Again, I'm someone who has a ton of questions. So I was just like, right, can we talk through what I need to know? And I think the biggest thing that Charlie did for me was when I was applying, because I didn't have the experience and I didn't know anyone in the space, I wanted to join originally as an advisor, join a practice, have that kind of mentor above me who I can learn from and kind of get a general sense of how things operate, but without the added stress of wearing every hat within a business, and being to just feel focused on the actual financial planning and, you know, meeting with clients, as opposed to marketing and costs and hiring and all the other things potentially come with running a practice. And when it came to doing the business plan, so the third stage, I like the second stage as well, because I feel like that really talked about what to expect and what was coming up. And it was a nice chance to meet other people applying as well. So it was good to see what kind of a mixture of people there were applying. And that really appealed to me. I like the idea that it was a mixture of ages, gender, career backgrounds. And it didn't feel like there was just like a cookie cutter. It wasn't like one mold. It was like all these different people were coming in. That really appealed to me. I didn't feel like I wasn't the right person for it effectively. And then, yeah, so when we're doing the business plan, I said, well, how do you want me to write it? Because I've been told, and again, it's probably changed since then, you either write it with the practice you're joining, or you write it as if you're setting yourself up. And I don't know who I'm joining because I don't have that connection. And he said to write it as if I was joining a practice, as if I was setting myself up, and then they would send it out to practices as a kind of like a pitching deck, I guess. Again, that's corporate finance. You have a pitching desk and you send it out. And so I did that. So I wrote it as if I was setting myself up, and I thought, what would my name be? And, you know, break it down into, I remember we had to do, and I don't know if they still do this now, but a SWOT analysis on yourself. So strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And I remember thinking at the time, well, if I'm going to do it for myself, I might as well do it for SJP too, because, you know, it's the partnership and we're both going to be analyzed by the clients I sit opposite. And I don't think, Charlie said many people have done that before. And I was like, well, I want to know, you know, fully what I'm getting myself into. And I fully even wrote down the cost of my first, second, maybe third, I can't remember, I think third year. And I knew it was going to go up because you get quite a bit covered at the start, and it's potentially like 50% costs. So I'd done all of that as well. And we had to do sounding exercises. Again, I don't know if that still happens. And I think we had to do about 10 or 15. And I've got, again, keen bean, I'd done about 25. It's like, no, I want to gather as much kind of market research as I can. And Charlie was the one who said, right, you're not joining a practice, you're setting yourself up. And I was like, oh, Charlie, we've had this conversation. Like, it's not like you're a new person, you know this. And honestly, life-changing. And I'm so glad he suggested it. I did need a couple of weeks to think it through and talk it through with my other half, and spoke to my granny, actually, my favorite family member. I feel like she's like the matriarchal, like, wisdom of the family. And she was the complete opposite to my husband. She was like, terrible idea, do not do it. Which I don't think I've told you this. It was very too risky. And amazingly, she came back to me about a year after I joined the academy and said, I made a complete mistake. I think this is the best decision you've made. And she is not a woman to apologize. So I was quite taken back by that.
So what did your husband say in contrast then?
So yeah, he was super supportive. He was like, look, you haven't been working for the last, I don't know what it was at this point, 3 months. You're still treating it like a job. You're at your desk by 9, you're working till 5, whether that's writing the business plan, asking your friends and family for feedback, whether it was doing the Quilter online course, or I was trying to access stuff through the PFS at that point as well. So I was doing, what's it called? PFS Power or something like that, which is like their online guidance videos. He was like, you are fully treating it like a job. No one's paying you. You're making no money at this point. You're just using the thank goodness fund, but you're so passionate about it. Why wouldn't you like run your own company if this is already what you're doing? He's like, you're such a self-starter. So I was like, okay. And genuinely, I didn't ever think I'd run my own company. That just like was a bit alien to me, but oh my gosh, I love it so much. Yeah.
It's amazing. And I think what's nice about the way SJP works is we obviously believed in you, that you had enough to make a success of it. And we'll come to that later. It isn't an overnight success for anybody.
No.
But if you did get to a position down the line where you thought, actually, I do need the support of a practice, you can always join a practice at that point. So it doesn't have to be a final decision. And if it doesn't work, that's it. It's a supportive environment where, should you have needed to join a practice at any point, you could have. But I'm delighted that here you are, a year out of graduating the academy, and you're still in business, which is brilliant.
Yes.
And you mentioned we had a call the other day just to catch up, and you mentioned some of the things that Charlie did in addition to the business planning and talking to people, is the personality profiler. What did you learn anything new about yourself during that process?
Yeah, I thought it was fascinating. So looking back, I always thought goals, like being goal focused, was my top scoring thing. But actually, it turns out I think entrepreneurial was one of my top scoring ones, which kind of threw me looking back then. I think I've completely blanked that since. And I'm trying to think, actually, if you don't mind, I've got my notebook. Talk about notebooks. I've got my notebook here, so I'm gonna have to quickly flap back and see. So yeah, top one. Oh, my top one was persuading and influencing. Okay, that's an interesting one. Didn't think that either. And then yeah, presenting and communicating, I have to admit, has got to a point now where if I'm at an event, I want to be the one up there talking, which wasn't me like 10 years ago. But now I'm just like, oh, I want to share my experience. I want to share what I know. And I know I have so much more to learn, and I'm just the start of my journey, but I love presenting now, and I love talking to people and all that kind of stuff. So that's been a big change. Yeah, achieving personal work goals and objectives. Again, I love a plan. I love a goal. It makes so much sense. And yeah, entrepreneurial and commercial thinking was another high scoring one. So yeah, it was quite exciting to kind of see. But again, I think because I'm a goal-based person, as much as I enjoy seeing what I was good at, is seeing my areas for improvement. So I could see, well, what do I need to be working on to help me with this role? Yeah,
absolutely. So yeah, just to that point, then that personality profiler isn't part of the selection process. It is part of the feedback, which says these are strengths, these are weaknesses, and we can help you develop any areas, and we can work on those things at a time that's right for you. So it's sort of bespoke in your learning journey. That's right, isn't it? So so it's an insight rather than it being part of the selection criteria. Okay, so when did you hear out that you sort of passed the selection process?
Yes, so I think I started applying in November, yeah, and then I heard back on my actual birthday, of all days, so 25th of January, and yeah, it was a really lovely call from Charlie, and he said, I've got great news for you, but like on 3 fronts. So one was, you've been accepted, and I was like, oh, amazing, and I was so happy as well, because on my final interview beforehand, they said, oh, you'll hear back in a few weeks. And then by the end of the interview, they were like, we'll let you know by the end of the week. And I was like, okay, fingers crossed, that's a good sign. So yeah, so one was you've been accepted in the academy. 2 was I was starting in March, which was the first month of intakes since pre-COVID. And I was obviously really keen to get going. So I was like, fantastic. And the 3rd was you've been accepted to join as a partner, because they kind of kept that in the air as well. They were like, we don't know, we'll see how we feel about it. So it was like, oh, everything I was hoping to get out of it, I did. So that was a great birthday.
Fantastic. And how many of the exams did you manage to do before you started, or did you wait till you joined the program?
So when I was applying, they said you had to do one, so RO1, and they did drop it in at the end of that phone call. Oh, by the way, you've got just under 2 months to do 2. So I was like, oh, great, fine. Let's see what we can do. So I managed to pass both of them first time, which was great. But the big learn was I had an old Mac at the time. I think it was about 10 years old, and it wouldn't load their software to watch you as you're doing the exam. So I was on the phone 15, 20 minutes before the exam started. And then I think at least half an hour into the exam had like time-wise started. And I remember asking on the phone, can you please guarantee that I'm not an instant fail? Because I'd seen online that that was the case. And I ended up, while I was on the phone, again, they knew I couldn't see a screen or anything. My husband came in the room. He had a monitor, desktop monitor, mine are laptops. And we ended up doing on his. But oh my gosh, it was so stressful going into it, let alone the fact my examiner kept leaving to take toilet breaks and not telling me how long they were gone for. And they just pause the screen, being like, we'll be back. And I remember being like, for how long? They'd be like, we'll let you know. You just sit there, just being like, cool, I can't see anything. I'm just sat in a room where I can't move. I can't look around. They were very like wary of what you were doing. So I think what was meant to be a 3-hour exam, might be in threes, was definitely over an hour and a half longer than it should have been. So I was happy that one got passed first time. And I was like, if that's what it's like.
Done. I mean, that's the thing. In an exam, it's nerve-wracking enough, isn't it, without any additional complications. So well done. And I think now we're out of sort of COVID, exam centres are open, and I think people have the choice of going physically to an exam centre to do an exam or doing it in your home. But like you say, it's a really good tip. Check the tech well in advance so you don't have that challenge. But well done. So you've done 2 exams, and then you joined the academy, and the next 3 exams were sort of 1 a month.
Yes, yeah. So I started 22nd of March. So I think, yeah, it must have been like April, May, and June. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was it. Mm-hmm.
And how were they, like, in terms of difficulty? So you've done GCSEs, A levels, and degree, and you were studying accountancy exams. So how did you find them?
So I will say, I think the accounting ones are slightly harder, just because there's so many calculations in it. And I thought when I was applying to the academy, there'd be a lot more maths in this job than there is. And I remember Charlie being like, I don't know why you keep bringing up maths as a strong suit, like you don't necessarily need it. And I was like, oh damn it, I was ready to like test my mental arithmetic. But no, I think when we were doing it, we were all the most afraid of the pension one. That's the one we were all quite scared of. So I ended up, and again, this is me being organized, I have an app that I don't use that much, but I do when I get stuck on something, and it's a mind map app. So you draw like a spidergram in the middle, and then you've got all these little things coming off it. And I did it for the pension exam. So I had all the modules for pensions coming off it. So DB, DC, different ways to access it, what were A-day changes, all this. And I ended up mentioning it in one of our lessons, workshops with the rest of my intake. And they all requested it. So I ended up taking screenshots and sending it to all of them. One of them was like, and it's rainbow colored as well. And one of them was like, I am 100% printing that and putting it on my wall. And someone else was like, side hustle, sorted, just like sell that. And I was like, okay, that did take like a couple of weeks to create, but I still refer back to it. I love the fact that pensions is generally not my favorite area. I love it so much, even though it is ridiculously complicated at times. But I really like the fact that I took the time to understand it and have that to refer back to. So I think, yeah, some of them are definitely harder than others, but just find a learning technique that works for you, and nice visuals works for me.
Love that. Brilliant. So what would you say? So exams okay for you, which is good to hear. And like say, actually, for others that might be watching, there could be people that aren't like you, who haven't done an exam for some time. And I think those first 2 exams that you sit before you join are a good little litmus test, aren't they? To say, gosh, can I get myself back into the flow of remembering things for exams? But yeah, I think you find your flow, and once you're in the academy, there's lots of help and support. And how did you find like Redmill, the system, which helps you with, there's videos to watch in there and all sorts of different ways to learn? Was that helpful?
So the one thing I remember, and I have to admit, I can't remember if it was Redmill or somewhere else, was audio of preparing for the exams, and that worked really well for me. I'd go for a walk outside and I'd just listen to them over and over, and they had questions at the end, so it was really good of recapping, of being like, well, did I remember that information? And the other thing I really love as well is and again, I don't know if I should mention this or not, but BTS is a type of training, and they ask questions exactly how they're asked in the exam. So I found that really helpful as well. And then it gives a full like long paragraph about why something was right or wrong. So I think for me, it was just like setting so much time aside to be doing the questions. So it's really good to be reading it and doing it. And I liked how Redmill broke it down week by week. So it made it a lot kind of easier to digest chunks rather than just one of the kind of the books, which is like what a full doorstop in itself. So I like the fact it was broken down in a nicer way. And I like the fact that there feels like there's so many different ways of accessing the information now. So whatever works for you, there's different formats.
Absolutely. And so was your academy, was it all virtual because of COVID?
Yes.
It was virtual. So I think the training's changed slightly since you did that, but you went from qualifications then into skills?
So the first 3 months was all about the exams, and then the second 3 months was all about how to run meetings. I don't even know if you guys still do this, but we all got like posted out cards that had all the kind of like case studies on them and that kind of stuff, because we didn't see each other until the ACM January the year after. So the second half was all about online videos showing how people had those meetings, and just kind of doing case studies with each other and kind of testing things. And again, the way I work, I remember the first time it came up when we were watching all the videos, making notes, and I ended up doing, and my ADM was Gary Fawn, he remember cracking up at me, a 15-page script of what I would do for each scenario. So one page was like saving and investing, one was like pensions, one was protection. And it was everything from like, hi, how are you? Da-da-da. And I always have said from the get-go, I always ask two questions at the start of every meeting. And one is, what would be a successful outcome for today? I always want to address that at the start so I can make sure at the end, I always reflect back and go, did we, help to achieve that? And the other one is always, what is your experience coming into it, or what made you kind of do this today? So again, you're building that understanding. And Gary was like, I love kind of what you've got in there, but let's not have a 15-page script. Like that's a bit too much. And again, being the kind of fast track person I am, by the end of that week, I had a 1 page of bullet points, and I love it. I still refer back to it every now and then when I'm feeling a bit lack of confidence, or just like, oh my gosh, did I do the right thing there? It's nice to have that to refer back to.
Wow. I love it. And just your approach to everything, very organized, and you make sure you give yourself the best opportunity when you're going into things. And I think that's a really great lesson for people listening to this. So we've been through exams, we've been through a bit of skills training. The next thing I guess on your list is, how on earth do I find my first client?
Yeah, I get asked this quite a lot actually now. So for me, I, again, being me, threw myself straight in the deep end. So I didn't speak to any friends or family. I spoke to someone that my facialist cat had referred to me. Never met her before. Didn't really know much about her background, but actually I quite enjoyed it because it was fully on the spot and what I felt like a real life situation would be. She was like not pulling any punches. And I do remember again, Gary Paul, my ADM, being like, oh, you've just like fully gone in the deep end there. You could have like had friends and family. And I was like, well, to be honest, she's probably nicer than my friends and family. They probably would all the punches about. So I think it was quite good, but I think it was one of those where it's just get yourself out there and don't expect to be the best from the get-go. Like I am still figuring out how to hone my technique, even though I had that full script and everything. And I think it's one of those where just the more you do it, the better it gets. So just expect for the first few to not be the best. You're not going to look back and be like, oh, I was amazing from the get-go. Amazing if you are. But it is like, okay, this is a chance for me to just hone my technique, to run through things. You're being observed. So you've got that kind of backup, I guess.
Safety there as well. Yeah. Somebody else is in the room with you who is qualified.
Exactly.
And
I think in one of my first few, I was like, oh, I feel terrible saying this, but I'm completely stumped. And I'd rather be honest up front. I can't remember, what exactly the right document is for that, or I can't remember what it was to explain something or something like that. And Gary did step in and explained it. But luckily, again, because I'm so upfront, they knew I was new to it. I wasn't pretending I've been doing this for years. I was very much like, I want to do the best I possibly can for you. If there's any point in the meeting, I don't feel that I'm giving you the best, I might ask my ADM to step in and help me with something to give you the best experience here. And I think they appreciated that honesty, and that I was like, I want to do my best for you, but I'm still very new and I'm still trying to figure it all out. And there is a lot of different things to be thinking about. And even, oh gosh, I don't do it anymore, but like dairy, I think was what we were taught on the course in terms of analyzing what someone needs afterwards. And I'd be like, can you just have a tea, or can you just grab some biscuits? I just need to like fully like figure this out. Like the cogs were just so slow, which luckily they're not anymore, but it's having, I've been told by one of my SJP buddies, she's like, you need to build your confidence. And that's something I've been working on a lot throughout this year. And I think that was the thing, is I just didn't want to make a mistake. I was so like, I'd rather go slow than make the wrong call or the wrong thing. And I think it's just having people who are understanding of that. And I've always been quite big at vetting my clients. I don't know if that's the right word to use, but personality is the biggest thing when I'm thinking about clients. I want clients for the next 30 years. So I want them to be people I could happily see all the time, whether that's in a meeting or for a catch up. Yeah.
Oh, thank you, Natasha. I love your honesty. And I think, like you say, it's always the best way to approach a meeting? Just be super upfront. I am new to this. I'm going to do my absolute best. And if I need help, luckily I've got this great person right next to me who's going to get us to do, everything that we need to do. So super way to approach it. So Kat sounds amazing, by the way. She makes you look the way you do. Tick.
Thank goodness.
She helped you with your career change, and she got you your first client.
I love her. She's amazing.
So how did you find, so what's the advice within your business plan, or like how do you then grow your business from that first experience with a client?
So I think for me, I'm still very much more initial meetings in the sense of growing it as opposed to referrals. And I know quite a lot of people who are up to that point now where a lot of the clients are just coming off the back of referrals. And I do want to get to that point. But for me, it's all off, we've initially met somewhere. So I'm doing a lot of networking. Again, I don't know if they still do this in the academy, but they gave us a monthly activity tracker, which I don't know how many of my intake are doing it. I've spoken to a few, not many are, as far as I'm aware. But again, being who I am, I do it every single month and I love it. And it just really helps to kind of see, well, what is translating to other stuff. So I launched 1st November 2021. So I originally was doing my year till Halloween, to 31st of October. I've now switched it this year for the first time from January to December. But yeah, in the first year, so November, October, I did 50 networking events. So that could have been things like, so I joined a few members clubs. So I was going there and they were doing like events about startups or, one was more startup club kind of thing. The other one was very much more, do you want to make jewelry or do you want to come do all this kind of stuff? So it's quite an interesting mixture of things. Other ones, Albright was quite a good one. That's another all members club that I joined. They had like monthly lunches, women in finance. Don't know if they're still doing that, but that was really handy at the start. And it's just, I think, putting yourself out there and talking to people. So far this year, I think I'm already on 60, 70. Then that's from January to where are we now? So August, first week of August. Although I gave myself July off. I didn't have any networking, don't think. No, I had no networking in July, so I gave myself a month off because it can be quite time consuming, but I love it. I think it's really interesting just getting to know other people. And again, that's probably why I do what I do. And it's a great way to meet people. And the one lesson I've learned, again, that I want to pass on is it's not always the person you meet who might be the client. I think that's what I thought originally, but now it's very much a lot of people I meet. It's people they know, it's colleagues of them, it's their family, it's their best friend who's wanted to talk to someone about us for ages, but they didn't know who to refer them to. So even if the person you meet isn't necessarily looking for what you're offering, they might know quite a few people, and that's been my kind of key learn. Yeah.
Wow. And I'm a big grin on my face, but just again, your attitude to this. So many people might feel uncomfortable, networking, it might be new for them. How did you feel at the start? Did you get imposter syndrome at all, or?
100%. And even now, like it totally varies. So some networking I'll go to feels quite cliquey. It feels like people have gone there with their friends, and that's what they're there for. And like I went to I partnered with Harper's Bazaar earlier this year on an article, and I went to an event they did with Verve Clicquot, which was amazing, a few months ago. That was more cliquey. It was definitely groups of girls just going there to have a great time. But I've been to other events, like I've just signed up for a group called the Sporting Club, and it's all about people who love sport, which obviously I do. And oh my gosh, they are the loveliest bunch. Like I knew no one in the room, and by the end, we were all just like chatting away, really welcoming. So even now, some scenarios I go into and you're just like, okay, this isn't quite the event I thought it was going to be. It's more just people spending time with their friends. And that's fine. It's just still fun to go to. And I did actually connect with 2 people there, but it's one of those. And other ones, you end up chatting to so many people and making so many things. So I think it's not worrying when you go in. It's just being open to whatever it is and not maybe having preconceptions of what it might be like. Yeah. I think the thing is, if it's networking, you're all there to meet each other usually. So just be open to that.
I love it. And it sounds like you've made it your own in terms of the types of things you've been to. Mm-hmm. They all sound super interesting to me, and maybe not what I would imagine networking to be. So it doesn't have to just be the local business network in your village. It could be, like you've just said, sports or whatever it is that you're really passionate about. Go and spend time with people who are also passionate about that, and then it will feel like so much more fun. Well, congratulations on your attitude to empowering yourself to just go along to those things, and brilliant things have come from it. So your collaboration with the magazines have come from networking.
Yeah.
I mean, that is amazing. So congratulations.
That was one of my New Year's resolutions. Quite happy with that.
I love it. We're going to come on to your goals in just a moment. So before we get to that, then, you've mentioned, Gary, your Academy Development Manager. Do you want to tell us a little bit about the support that everybody gets when they come to the Academy? So everybody gets an Academy Development Manager and also a mentor. Do you want to share what those two people have been like for you?
Definitely. And I think that's something I talked about a lot, even when I was applying to the Academy. What drew to the SJP Academy before I joined it, and I remember saying, I love what I've heard about the support you get. So yeah, through your ADM Academy Development Manager, which for me was Gary Poole, and he basically, so everyone serves a slightly different function, I guess. He was there, so if I had any technical things, I could kind of go to him and be like, oh, I'm not sure about, the internet. Which is a bit of a minefield when you're first starting out. You're like, oh my gosh, everything's everywhere. I don't know how to find it. He was great with that. And just generally kind of like, I've got a meeting coming up. It's a different type of client to what I've done before. Can we just run through things? He was great at doing that kind of stuff. So helped me prepare for meetings. And we always did a lot of analysis around my meetings. What were my key learns? What I'd done well, hadn't done well. And I really appreciated that feedback. That was really kind of one of the key things I thought was really helpful with the relationship, I guess. And then with mentors, because I wasn't joining somewhere, it was about finding someone who's in a similar position to me, so a partner. And I think I did a video. I think someone mentioned it to me recently if they saw my video, so I don't know if it's still doing the round somewhere. But and it was just kind of talking about why I got into it, what I would look for from a mentor effectively, and ended up having a few interviews with different people off the back of it. And the first one I spoke to actually became my mentor. His name's Nigel Helen, and we just really hit it off. I really liked the fact that he was quite new to it as well. I think he'd been a partner for about 4 years back when we had our first chat. And so he kind of understood what position I was in just joining and what kind of things I'd need to be aware of and to consider. He actually came to my graduation back in June, which was really sweet because he told me his daughter had just had her first sleepover the night before, and he still got on the train, came up to London, Drapers Hall, and was there for my graduation. So I really appreciate him kind of making the time for that. And I know, so with Gary, it felt a lot more regimented, I guess. So we knew we were having regular, I think it was every other week checking in, I think, can't quite remember. And with Nigel, I think at the start I tried to be as regimented, and I was like, right, we're going to have Tuesday mornings every other week, I'm going to check in. But then with the Academy, things were at different times, so that was a bit tricky to kind of keep hold of. And it's one of those now where we don't have any routine at all to how we catch up, but I know as and when, even this year, if I have any queries or have anything that I'm not quite sure about, he has always picked up the phone that day back to me and just said, let's have a quick chat. How can I help you? And he's been really, really helpful to have. And I would say, as well as having those two, which are set up, like everyone I've spoken to has been really helpful. So I've got, we set up a WhatsApp in our intake. So we're still messaging all the time to check how we're doing in there. There's a Knightsbridge WhatsApp group that we've got that I send questions to, and everyone does, to see how changes are coming about and which things to know. But also generally people at SJP. I've been for quite a few lunches now with different people. Knightsbridge does different events. So we had one at the Science Museum earlier this year, and it was really I don't know if sweet's the right word, but it was really good. I can't think of a better word right now, but I thought they got everyone to stand up who hadn't been to a meeting event like that before, and I hadn't, so I was standing up. And then they said, everyone who sat down, look at the people standing up, go say hi to them, try and connect with them. And I thought that was so lovely. So there was a guy on the table behind me who'd been at SJP for 30 years. He came over and said hi, and we went for lunch about a month later, and he kind of shared his experience and everything like that. So I love that sense of community I've felt from being with SJP, that everyone's connected. We've got Unity, which is the women's group. Even on Knightsbridge, I go to Lombard Street events every now and then and stuff. And I feel there's a really lovely community. I've now got like my SJP buddies, I guess, who are different to all of those things as well. So in location, in Knightsbridge, I have my best friend there, Elliot. We literally have spoken, I think, every day this week. He's been throwing tons of questions my way, so that's been great. And my other one is Charlotte, and she's based in Milton Keynes. And we met at one of the Knightsbridge lunches last year. And again, she's almost like another mentor to me. I know if I've got any questions, I can fire them her way. And as and when she's in London, we try and meet up. So I love it. It feels like on so many different levels beyond what you get through the academy, there's so many other kind of friendships and support networks you can build with it. And I love that.
It's so nice to hear you speak about it like that. And that's what your reality is. And because you are starting your own business, and effectively some people might be fearful of it feeling lonely, or you're having to find things out for yourself, but it doesn't sound like that's the case.
Oh, totally. I said, like, to my husband recently, it feels like I've got the best of both worlds, in the sense that I'm running my own business and I am my own boss, which I love. And, I get to work how I want to work and who I want to work with, but I'm not alone. I have like the family. Well, I've never really been a massive fan of family to do with work. I think they're separate things, but you have the support around you, have that network of whatever it is. If it's, super technical, or you just want to pick up the phone and say, do you know what? It's been a really tough week. I just need someone to talk to and have a chat, because it is a roller coaster. You have weeks that are amazing and you're on a high, and you have other weeks you're just like, what am I doing? Was this the right decision? Life is so hard. This client that I really thought was amazing has turned around and said no, and that might have been a not yet, or they might just whatever. And it's, you never know what's going to come each week, which is great and really suits me. I really like routine, but not repetition, and that's what this does as a job. But it's having someone for whatever comes up, you can pick up the phone to and even if you don't like speaking on the phone, you can text them. Like, it doesn't have to be a phone call, but you can just talk to someone and have that chat and that kind of someone to share something with.
The support that is there. That's fantastic. So let's talk a little bit about what you do for clients, because there might be people, tapping into this podcast like you did in your initial research, and they're getting excited. They're listening to what you're saying. So let's paint the picture of the types of things that you do actually do as a financial advisor now you are qualified and out there.
So in terms of what would I do in a meeting, or?
No, not necessarily. But what are the things that we typically help clients with?
Okay, so my favorite document, and again, I love, structure. So I always use the Wheel of Services document with the client, in terms of, I think it's a really helpful way of explaining all the different areas we work in. And I usually start by talking about protection and explain it as that's the foundation of the house. So a lot of people don't understand protection, I find, in terms of clients. They can understand investing, they kind of understand pensions as concepts, probably not much more than that, but they've heard of it. But when you talk about protection, I feel like they don't fully understand what's available, how they're different, and all that kind of stuff. So I think that's a really kind of key area as an educational piece, I say, as much as anything, with clients. So that's definitely something I always try and cover on the wheel. And then, the other main areas are investing, and I'd say pensions for me particularly. I have got a few other cases where it's more estate planning and trusts and that kind of side of things, but typically I'd say it's protection, pensions, and basically ISAs or unit trusts are the kind of main areas with clients. But again, it's nice. I always talk about it from the start of the meeting, being like, oh, I've got a document coming up that shows all the different areas I can help you. Because when you say you're a wealth manager, people assume what that might be, but rarely do they know what it actually is. And that's why it's quite nice to just be like, here are all the different areas of where we can work together and I can help you. And again, I'm always like, whatever you decide today, it's not set in stone. I'm not going to go back and be like, well, you said on that day, that's it. I'm like, this is adaptable. It changes with you. You might have a workplace that covers all your protection today, but if you leave it, let's reassess. And likewise with investments. Okay, you might have had all these investments, but you've just bought a house. So a lot of that has gone into that. So let's reassess it. So it's about constantly checking in and seeing what they need from it as well. So I'm like, this is an ongoing document for us to use.
I love that. Thank you. I think that's super helpful for people to understand the types of things that you can help people with. So you mentioned this already. You set yourself, is it New Year's resolutions or goals for the year in January?
Yes,
both resolutions and goals. Okay. So what were they, and how are you doing this year?
Do you know what, actually, I have got that notebook open next to me. I was like, oh, I thought you might ask this. So I was like, right, I better double check. So top of my list was to get Cyber Essentials certified, which for everyone now will be standard, but for the rest of us, that only came in the end of last year. So that was top of my list. I've got Cyber Essentials Plus, and that felt good. So that was one tick on my goal for the year. Another thing was to be in the Times brings out every year a list of top rated advisors. And the way you make the list is to be on a platform called Vouch For, where clients can leave testimonials. And if you get 10, I think it's 4.5 or 5-star reviews in a year, then you're on the list. I feel very fortunate that all of mine are 5-star so far, touch wood. But yes, so I've been on that list. So I started again, 1st November, just about managed to get 10 for the end of that year. So I managed to make the 22 list. So I wanted to make 23, happily made it. And I'm currently 2 away from making next year's. So I'm trying to get that. That will be next year's resolution. I want to have a certain amount of assets under management because, again, when I was going for and this will probably change again, graduating, that potentially was part of it, but we didn't know exactly. So I was trying to build up towards that. But I had a bigger figure, if I'm honest, by the end of the year that I wanted to achieve. And I just achieved that by the end of July. So that was really exciting. So I was like, yes, come on, got the champagne. And then other things were, to build that relationship with Harper's Bazaar. I really like the idea of doing things in financial planning that I've not seen be done before. And I think that kind of approach, I hadn't seen anyone do that before. So I really kind of like that and hoping to do more there. Social media, again, I feel like that only just opened up as I joined the Academy in 2021. And so I'm really trying to build my following online. So I want to reach 1,000 followers by the end of the year. I started on 500, I think. And I just hit that last week. So that was really exciting. So I'm like, come on, again, another one managed to do before the end of the year. So
well, not the end of the year, we're sort of just past the halfway mark. So you're well ahead of your intended goals.
So it feels really nice. And again, so these are, I have a notebook right here. That's why I'm looking down, of what I set for myself 2nd of January. That's when I wrote them down. But I do also have my own business plan. So as well as doing one when I applied to the Academy, I've kind of updated it. It's now a couple of PowerPoint slides. And I check in every quarter on how I'm doing. And that's more day-to-day stuff. So for me, the notebook is more overarching big goals. What am I working towards? And I have my business plan is more, well, how many, again, this is what I wrote down in my original one, how many coffee meetings do I need to be having that lead to CFR meetings, that lead to presentations, that lead to clients and effectively reviews now as well. And so it's all of that kind of stuff. So I have that in my business presentation, business plan, basically, to look at and to see that. So I've got both the nitty gritty, I guess, the detail of what's actually happening with my business, as well as the overarching, well, what we're trying to do to build my reputation, I guess, and my brand within the industry to try and grow that.
Amazing. And you're well on track to achieving all of them and just past the half year. So that's very inspiring. So you made this big career change. You've worked incredibly hard. I think anybody listening to this can tell that you do work very hard to get to where you got to. So what are you most excited about now that you've made this transition about your future and your family's future?
So, I feel like, again, there's so much coming up in the pipeline at the moment, even before the year ends. So, that's about as far as my brain's going right now. I'm currently doing a BSP. So for those who don't know, it's the selling and purchasing of other practices, effectively, or client lists within SJP. So I'm in, I've got the list. We're just finalizing it at the moment. So we're hoping to do that in the next month or two. So that's kind of the next big step in my business, is growing it by taking on this other person's list of clients. And then I think at some point, and again, I was being a bit keen with this, and now I'm being a bit slower, is I would like to get chartered at some point, but I think it does take a lot more work to do that. So I want to kind of dedicate, I'm going to try and do it within 12 months, is what I'm saying to myself. Again, TBC what happens on that front. But I think I'd like to just know that's my year and just fully put everything I can into studying and doing it. And I haven't done, aside from the internal exams, any exams since September last year. Fully gave myself a bit of a break. But I'm like, maybe the next year or two, maybe 3, might get back into trying to do that. I really like the fact you've got that next level of knowledge. So that's definitely something I want to try and do in the next 5 years. And further out than that, the big decision that I'm going to take quite a while probably to decide is whether I stay as I'm not sure about phrase, but a one-man band. So effectively it's just me with some more kind of support. Or if I take it in the extent of growing it out and taking on advisors and having it more as a business separate, I guess, to me. So that's the longer term plan. I'm trying to figure those two out. But for me, that's a while off. I feel like I've still got so much I'm trying to do shorter term that we'll come back to that at some point.
I love that all of those opportunities are available to you at the time that's right for you, and making sure that you're getting the balance right with productivity and funding your life right now versus investing in your future. But that sounds brilliant, and I've no doubt you'll achieve all of those things, Natasha. So good luck.
Thank you.
Final question is, for people watching who may be in the position that you were back in 2020, what piece of advice would you give them if they're looking to explore this as an opportunity themselves?
So the best thing I think I heard when I was in the academy, the one that really stuck with me, is BBQ. And what that means is be brave quicker. So it's the idea that this might be something that scares you, or you might not be entirely sure about how to approach it, how you're going to kind of, whether that's the academy or after the academy. And it's the idea of just pushing yourself a little bit outside your comfort zone, because that's how you grow it, is by taking a slight step out and doing something that right now might scare you. And oh my gosh, if I look back, there's so many things over the last 2-3 years that have been terrifying. But it's just thinking, let's try it. Let's see what happens. And just giving yourself that chance to explore it and see what's possible. And by doing that, you grow your confidence and your comfort zone. And I think that's a really kind of important way of approaching life.
Well, I think you are the exemplary example of doing exactly that, being brave quicker, getting outside your comfort zone, embracing the things that, on paper make sense for you to do, and you've just gone out there and done it. And the success is sort of beaming through you right now with your confidence levels and where you've got to in your business much quicker than you thought you would. So a shining example to everybody watching. So thank you so much, Natasha, for being with us today, sharing your experience with us and your valuable insights. I hope everybody watching has found it useful.
Thank you very much, G. It's been wonderful.